coworker is pissed I didn't work more hours so she could sit on her ass all day, so I work at the restaurant of a retirement home. As we no longer have a kitchen on site, we reheat the food that's delivered by a big kitchen that cooks for multiple establishments. And as my N+1 is on sick leave, I'm the one in charge. Last Friday at work was kind of hectic, a lot more people than usual coming to eat. A lot of staff who had either called in sick or taken a day off. At one point I had to call the kitchen because they had forgotten some meals for the Sunday. This will be important later. Anyway, I spent the day doing everything in a hurry because I was alone doing two people's work and my front room coworkers couldn't give me a hand like they would usually do because they were understaffed as well. My shift ends at 2 p.m. but 4 p.m. rolls around and I'm still busy cleaning up when the remainder of Sunday delivery arrives in the person of my ex-favorite coworker who now works there. I stored it and we ended up chatting for some hours because we hadn't seen each other in a while before he left and I wrap up. Now, the restaurant is closed on Sundays and meals are delivered in doggy bags that I usually pack on Friday because when everyone's working I have the time to do it. Even though on Saturdays few people come to the restaurant, there are none of the smaller tasks that take up a lot of our time during the week. And whoever is in charge of backroom this day usually has time to sit back and relax. Monday, the person who was backroom Saturday complained to me that she couldn't rest because she had to pack Sunday's doggy bags and I was like, yeah, sorry. Friday was a never-ending rush and I didn't have time for it. She repeated it 1 or 2 times during the day but I honestly didn't think much of it. Because I honestly didn't feel bad about it and didn't really think it was a me problem. But then yesterday I learned by my other coworker who worked front room that Saturday that she had spent the week dissing me behind my back and telling everyone that if she can leave at 6 because she's chatting with Ricky, she can leave at 6:30 to pack the doggy bags. They were still able to leave 1 hour early that day. Not his real name. Wife sex made our early years help. I finally get fed up and did something. Thanks to everyone for all the support on the last post, but recently it got me thinking. Holy hell, do I actually have a lot of EP stories from my wife's side of the family. So because the beginnings of this horrid epic aren't mine to tell, I'll give a brief overview. Wife sex's D for douchebag plans for when they got married. My wife would not be allowed to dress like a regular person. Old school full-body dresses only like your Aunt Lucille. Church was mandatory. Wife was raised Catholic but finds more self-fulfillment in Wicca, paganism. If it was found out later in his life that my son was gay, the gay would be beaten out of him. A few other things along the same veins of logic, too many for this post to still be readable. For obvious reasons, my wife smartly ended the relationship before any serious commitment, but there was a tricky caveat. For my son Sake. He was told his entire life up to that point that D was his father, as his bio father dipped as soon as he found out my wife was pregnant. My son took it like a champ when my wife and I finally told him the truth. And despite the facts of why I detest this guy with every fiber of my being, which I'll get into here in a minute, we told my boy it was his choice if he still wanted to call D Dad. He would use this to his scurrilous advantage to no end. Buying custom Jordans with my son's name and dad stitched on the heels for his birthday, for example, while my son lived in my house. D would also, in their prior relationship and in my marriage to my wife, go behind her back and report anything he deemed as amoral or sordid to her parents because they held the same standards as him, getting her in huge trouble for just trying to live her life outside their strictures. This guy is a spineless coward and I've only scared my wife with my anger a few times in our relationship. Most of those times were because of him. There's regular loud anger, then there's quiet radiating anger. For the first year of my marriage, this dickweed called up my wife on the regular, demanding to talk to his kids. If they were unavailable or if we just didn't want to deal with him, he'd call her parents and say we were denying him access to his kids. My wife says that the people like D are what's known as play daddies. I.e. only really take on the dad role when there are brownie points to be earned with the kids or there's good publicity. A few times, when we've gone to visit her parents, suddenly a wild D appeared and we couldn't run. Christmas, summer break, you name it, he showed up asking for a day out with our kids. Finally, after about the third time he made my wife cry with his bullshit, I'd had enough. This man had made the woman I was building a future with weep with impotent fury, and that made him my enemy. The next time he called, he once again had my wife in a state of emotional duress. I held out my hand and said in that quiet anger tone, "Babe, give me the phone." I then took the phone out onto the back porch and gave him a piece of my mind. It went a little something like this. D, hello. Listen here, you gutless shit. I have had enough of your bullshit polluting my relationship. This woman, these children, are mine now. The fact that we are even speaking right now shows in spades how magnanimous my wife, putting emphasis on how he has no ties here, is. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop with your bullshit. You want to play at being daddy? Fine. Then start paying child support for these kids you want to claim so fucking badly. If not, then fuck off. This game you're trying to play is pay to play. Without that money, you have no ties to these kids, and so help me God, if this keeps up, you'd better pray I not find you. So fish or cut bait, motherfucker, choice is yours. D. So, can I talk to my kids? I kid you not, Reddit, I saw Ed. I had to hang up immediately before I broke my wife's phone. The sheer audacity and ego of this, as we called it in the Corps, colossal window-looking fucktard. And, of course, her parents took his side on all of this. Not long after, we get a call from them asking how she could let me talk to the man who'd done so much to help her raise those kids before I showed up. In no uncertain terms, my wife and I explained that I'm not going anywhere. He's not their dad. They need to remove their heads out of their asses, or I'd present them a similar deal as I'd given to D. The next time I saw D in person, because of course her parents invited him to a family gathering, he was glaring at me most of the time. I'm a head taller and twice abreast as him. All I do is give him a look that says, "Try me, bitch, I will bury you." Oh, and let's not forget he's got a new woman that he so proudly brought with him when we visited for Christmas a few years ago. My infant daughter was only 6 months old at the time, and the lady asked if she could hold her. We didn't know her like that, and she's got affiliation with D, so we said that we wouldn't be comfortable with it. He's called to bother my wife a few times asking if our son would be willing to be the best man at his wedding. My wife gave a very non-committal, "That's his choice and only if we have the means to," since he's 17.